I spiraled into depression after my wife's death. However, I had to pull things together for our 10-year-old daughter, Sarah. I could tell she was having a hard time without her mother. No matter how much I tried, I wasn't being able to give her the love and care she deserved. One night as I was preparing to go to bed, I saw Sarah crying by herself in her room. I neither had the courage to talk to her nor to console her, but I became determined to change my life. I started going to counseling. As suggested by the therapist, I also sold my house and moved to a different state to restart my life. Without much thinking, I bought a house in Montreal. We quickly moved in and started our new life. Sarah and I were the happiest that we had ever been after my wife's death. It was in the middle of the school term, so enrolling Sarah in a new school wasn't possible. Consequently, while I was at work, she had to stay home alone. Sarah was a responsible and mature child, so I didn't stress too much. Plus, I had the CCTV cameras installed at home, which allowed me to keep an eye on her from time to time. Days passed by and I could see Sarah was comfortably settled in our new home. She used to talk about her new friend, Annie, and they'd spend time together. I also checked the CCTV, but I could actually see her playing by herself. I knew children were imaginative, so I didn't question her about the imaginary friend. However, it was on the morning of Halloween. Sarah insisted that she really wanted to go out with Annie. I had an important meeting that day and was swamped preparing for it. I didn't want to deal with her constant nagging, so I quickly gave in and let her go. I was so wrapped up in my work that I didn't even have a chance to check in on her from the CCTV or give her a call during the day. As I returned back home at 8 p.m., I noticed the front door was locked from inside. I took out my key, unlocked the door, and walked inside. I was pretty late, so I had brought dinner for us. As I placed it on the table and called out Sarah, she didn't reply back. That was unlikely of her, because she usually came running as soon as I came back home. I felt my body turn cold and ran around searching for her. She was literally nowhere to be found, but since the door was locked from inside, I was certain she hadn't gone anywhere. Feeling totally nervous, I began to check the CCTV footage from that day. Shivers ran down my spine when I saw my daughter talk and laugh by herself playing the seesaw. Believe it or not, she was the only one there. Nothing made sense. I carefully looked at the last footage, which showed Sarah walking down the basement of our house. I relentlessly ran towards the basement. That room used to be locked, so I was confused about how it was open that night. With my trembling hands, I pushed open the basement door. The lights weren't functional and it was pitch dark. I turned on my phone's torchlight. All the items were scattered on the floor. It seemed like I had entered a different realm. As I walked a little further, I noticed a silhouette of a girl. It was my daughter. My body became cold looking at her. She was wearing a bridal gown and began to limp towards me, dragging the long gown. My mind went wild with terror. "What are you doing here?" I yelled, completely frightened, but she didn't speak a word. Her face and eyes looked lifeless. Then all at once she lifted her arm and began to point at someone behind me. Shivers ran down my spine. Slowly I turned my head around. There was a girl standing behind me. She wore a long red dress with the letter A engraved on the right chest pocket. My mouth went dry. I immediately lifted my daughter and ran upstairs towards the basement door. Sarah was unresponsive, but I was determined to safely get her out of the mess. As I nearly reached the top of the basement, I saw the same girl standing and staring down at me. I pinned my torch on her face, which looked terrifying. There was no flesh on her face. I could see her bones. Her eyeballs looked like they had popped out. "Trick or treat," she uttered in a loud, screechy voice. I was horrified and not a word came out of my mouth. Then all at once, without me even realizing, she pushed me down the stairs. When I woke up, I found myself lying on the floor outside the basement. There was a huge lock outside the basement door. It all felt like the worst nightmare, but the throbbing pain in my head said otherwise. I instantly got up and searched for my daughter, but miserably failed. My body felt numb, but I was determined to not give up. With my heart beating rapidly, I called 911. The cops came to my house in a matter of minutes and broke open the basement door. At the bottom of the stairs laid my daughter covered in blood. I became half mad with terror. I couldn't believe anything. I screamed and yelled in anger and fear. But obviously, my daughter didn't return back. The investigating team were also able to find 4 dead bodies of previous tenants who had mysteriously disappeared. One of the dead bodies belonged to a girl named Annie who had supposedly murdered her entire family.